Another fishing podcast, number 43, coming at you. And wow, oh wow, do we have an episode for you today. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of things. I have my trusty list right here. MLF Team Series just got done, wrapped up with that, and very interesting stuff going on there. We'll talk about MLF. There's some anglers that aren't happy. We'll talk about it. Also, the infamous walleye cheater. Remember those walleye cheaters? They made national, actually they made international news, which is really quite crazy. Well, one of them is still infamously cheating. So the infamous cheater is still infamously cheating, which is, what a character. Upcoming videos I'm making, I'm about to make. I'm going to edit on a 6 cents panorama video. This bait is really unique. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. And also a social media account that you need to follow. Let's get into it.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
All right, well, I was in Longview, Texas for the week. I got back, today is Monday. I got back on, oh geez, my brain anymore, I'm telling you, is just going. I got back on Saturday. I got back. And so, as I'm sure you're aware, Major League Fishing, a lot of changes coming down the pike. A lot of format changes. They're going back to the every fish counts instead of the 5 fish that they dabbled back again with for a year. This year they did the 5 fish. They're going back to the every fish counts now, which is probably a good move. Like I've said in the past, I think they need just to make sure to incentivize catching big fish. There can't be such a heavy emphasis on catching small fish. I think that variable weight that they have where it's all kind of dependent on the fishery that they're going to, whether, the weight stays around that 1 pound mark or goes up to 2 or more pounds. I think that's very smart. I think some fisheries, pound and a half is fine. Some of these more stingy fisheries, but if you're going to more productive fisheries, I think that variable weight is incredibly crucial. Because I remember, at the beginning of the Bass Pro Tour, when it was just that set 1 pound minimum, it did feel like it was incentivizing incentivizing catching small fish too much. So I'm glad that they did enact that every fish counts rule, however you'd like to call it. I think that's an important move. So anyway, they went back to every fish counts. And they're going to, in 2024, they're going to cut for the 2025 season 30 guys. So instead of 80 guys in the Bass Pro Tour, it's going to be 50 guys. And there's a lot of people not happy about that. One of the Bass Pro Tour anglers, I actually was just watching a podcast the other day with him. James Watson, a lot of people love him. Very funny guy. He was on a podcast. I believe it's the low budget podcast with something like that. I'm terrible. I should be listening to that podcast. It was a very interesting listen to have James on there, and James was not happy with Major League Fishing. So, I don't know what's going to happen with how that's going to affect James's career. I wish him the best because he's really a really entertaining dude, and I think he brings a lot to the table. So there's that going on. A lot of anglers are not happy about that going on. And then also, let's see who was on. So Boyd Duckett, who is the CEO of Major League Fishing, he was on a podcast with Mike Iaconelli recently, and that I missed that podcast, unfortunately, but I'm sure that was very interesting. And I'd be interested in hearing what you guys had, if you were able to check that out. Tell me what went down in the comments. I just didn't have any time to listen to it. Getting back from my week-long shoot, and then trying to get everything prepared for this podcast. Got a ton of stuff to go through today. So I just didn't get an opportunity to really dive into that. I think those Ike podcasts are pretty long, and I started listening to the beginning of it, but I had to go to bed, quite frankly, because I was so tired. So, just the fact that Boyd Duckett was on there, I think trying to do some damage control, because there was just a lot of, there's people going on podcasts, there's a lot of talk, and it's a very tumultuous time to be a bass angler. And I'll be quite honest with you, it's a tumultuous time to be a freelance videographer who his bread and butter work is fishing, and specifically professional competitive bass fishing. So a lot of unknowns for next year. But yeah, so they're going to that 50 boat field. That's really made a lot of people stressed out. Just to be able to qualify, a lot of people, I've talked to people even on this last shoot, this team series event that I did. I just talked to some anglers that are like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm not sure whether I'll have a job at the end of next year. So a lot of stress, just in general, it's an uneasy time. So, but the other thing too that they're changing for next year is in the knockout round, instead of taking 20 anglers from Group A and Group B, they're only taking 10 anglers. So, that's going to add quite a bit of stress too for guys to try to get into that championship round, and just a lot of. It's like we're in a bit of a storm right now, I'll say, in the professional bass fishing world. So, but as far as the team series, I worked with Brent Chapman, Andy Montgomery, Takahiro Amori, and Kyle Hall, and that week, and it was good for the most part. The weather was good except for 2 days. The first day where we had some precipitation, I actually got dehydrated. And for the first time in my career, I actually had to quit. I tapped out. I absolutely tapped out because it was, I've been dehydrated before. And I've said this before on this podcast, that you need, especially if you get older, I think what happens too, I think this is something that happens as you get older, and maybe, and Pete Mena, this has happened to Pete Mena before. Pete Mena is a professional muskie fisherman who I've worked a ton with, a buddy of mine. He got, I guess, I can't remember what he called it. It wasn't heat stroke, it was like sunstroke or something one time. Out muskie fishing, and he has never been the same since. So he has to keep really covered up, make sure he's getting a lot of hydration. And I think something similar to me happened about 2 years ago on Lake Cayuga, filming might have been last year. Time is flying by so fast, it's ridiculous. But it might have been last year. It's either last year or the year before on Lake Cayuga, filming the Bass Pro Tour. I got very, very, I had a headache. It's a telltale sign of being dehydrated, having a bad headache. And then I started just kind of shaking, like my hands were kind of shaking, And then I started getting very weak and feeling like I could faint. That is dehydration. I'm telling you. And here's the crazy thing about it. You can drink as much water as you want, and it's not gonna make a difference. You need to have something with more oomph, and particularly something with sodium, so salt. Pickle juice really works well too, but I've said this in the past, Gatorlyte. So Gatorade is making this, essentially it's like a Pedialyte, but Gatorade's version of it. It has everything to really get you out of that dehydration mode that could just completely lay you out. Dehydration also makes you nauseous. So Gatorlyte. So the first time I ever got dehydrated out on the water filming, I had a Gatorlyte with me. I drank the whole thing, and within 20 minutes, I was completely fine. It completely saved the day. this team series I was filming last week down in Texas, I did not have any Gator Light. Lesson learned. So what happened is I'm drinking water, I'm keeping hydrated, and yet I still have this headache. A buddy of mine gives me some ibuprofen. That's having nothing. It's not fixing the headache at all. I'm drinking a ton of water, so I'm like, what is going on here? I've drank a ton of water. You know, I'm peeing, I'm drinking, I'm peeing, I'm drinking. It's like that Chubbawamba song back in the 90s, you know, pissing the night. I was pissing the day away. And still, so when I used to think that if you were peeing, right, that you were actually, you know, drinking and peeing, that you were actually fine, like you weren't dehydrated. Well, that is not true. That is not true at all. And I didn't have any Gator Lights with me, so I'm starting to, that headache's getting worse, and I'm starting, my hands beginning to shake, and I'm feeling like I'm going to faint, and then I'm also feeling nauseous. So I feel absolutely miserable. And I'm feeling this way, and I'm just like, I got like 4 hours left to film. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I really, really don't know how I'm going to continue on out here, which is hard enough, you know, just being out there in the elements and a heavy camera on your shoulder. They're long days. But when you're not feeling good, it is just terrible. I suppose that's with many jobs. But this job in particular, I'm telling you, you want to feel good out there. And so I was like, I need to call the producer, my man, Randy White, and say, Randy, I am not feeling well, and I need you to take me out of the game, coach. I need you. I hate to say this. I hate to be a quitter, but I need you to take you out, because I'm worried. I was actually very worried that I might faint and fall in the water and ruin the camera. So I text Randy, and the beauty of Major League Fishing and how these tournaments are covered, a lot of the heavy work is being done by the drones, by the aerial cameras, right? First of all, God bless drones. They give you amazing, it's very important coverage of the sport. I know some anglers get annoyed by them. Hell, some of the camera guys get annoyed by them because we got to put our phones away. If we were looking at our phones, you know, and checking our emails and looking at our social media, you know, we got to put our phones away when the drone comes because it ruins the shot, you know. No one wants to see a camera guy in the back of the boat looking at his phone as he's filming. So that does have, but other than that, I love the drones, an amazing footage. But the beauty of it is that those drone operators also are fantastic, just ground camera guys. And so they're able, one of them was thank goodness, able to come and save me. And David, thank you so much, brother. And so I was able to get off the boat and recuperate, go back to my hotel room, sleep, and drink Gator Lights. And I think the next day I did like a liquid IV, which is another option. But you know, if you don't like the sugar in the Gator Light, they've got Gator Light now. It sounds like a commercial, doesn't it? They got Gator Light in a zero sugar option, so I would recommend that highly. But it was kind of scary, you know. And I didn't think it was. I was beginning to wonder if it wasn't dehydration, but it was definitely dehydration. And I think since that happened to me in New York, that time on Lake Cayuga, I think I'm just more susceptible of being dehydrated. So you gotta, you know, if you've been dehydrated in the past, I think you become possibly more susceptible to it in the future. And so just watch out for that. I think if you're fishing tournaments or just fishing in general, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be hot out. It was warm down there. It was more, I guess, humid than anything. But I think maybe even too, the change from coming from a Minnesota climate down to Texas, I think might have played a role in how I was feeling. So it's not anything that I'm, I like to think that I'm some tough guy, but I had to tap out. But thank you to Randy White, the producer, Johnny on the spot, got a boat over to me, got me off that, got me off of, I was with Andy Montgomery when I was filming, got off Andy's boat, and David was able to come and fill in for me and did a hell of a job. So just want to thank everybody involved for like saving me, basically. But yeah, it was that was a stressful part of my week last week. Also, I got to tell you, so I filming with Brent Chapman. If you follow bass fishing at all, Brent Chapman is a whiz with a chatterbait, a bladed jig. What's another name for a chatterbait? A generic name, bladed jig. Oh gosh, I can't remember. There's another one, bladed jig or a vibrating jig. Okay, so but the chatterbait is really the original, and boy, they have a lot of versions. They've really perfected the idea of a bladed jig. A lot of expensive versions too. That jackhammer, which most of these guys throw, is like a highly designed version of the chatterbait, and it's very expensive too. And up here, I'm terrified. Up here in Minnesota, I'm terrified to throw it because there's northern pike everywhere. And I'm like, I cannot be throwing a bait this expensive, knowing that there's a good chance that I'm not going to be throwing it for very long because of northern pike. So that's the reason I haven't delved into throwing, super expensive like chatterbaits. I mean, honestly, the more I've thought about it, it's a bait that I haven't even thrown enough. I mean, I'll get into that. But so Brent Chapman's throwing this chatterbait, and he's catching them, covering water. What a chatterbait is like, in the old days, we just throw spinnerbaits for covering water. I love spinnerbaits for that regard because you can cover water so quickly with it. You can make it erratic, stop and go retrieves, jerking your rod tip, twitching your rod tip. You can make it somewhat erratic. That's why Van Dam, a spinnerbait was one of his key tools in his career, because you can cover so much water with it. But I'll tell you, a chatterbait, and it's one of those baits too that came on the scene, was on fire. It was almost like the A-rig. The A-rig was similar, it was like boom. It's like everybody's throwing the A-rig. It's catching a ton of fish. I guess the shaky head, little less. It's not as innovative of a bait, but the shaky head, when it kind of had its heyday in when was that? The mid 2000s or something, or like it was catching a lot of fish behind people, and then it's kind of cooled off, right? That presentation. I keep on looking at this glass and it's not clean, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be drinking from this glass right now, so I'm cleaning that off. I'm sorry, I'm kind of OCD. Totally. I'm taking a drink right now. Okay. So back to the chatterbait. So the chatterbait is one of these baits where it came on the scene, completely new kind of lure, and it blew up, man. And it's one of these baits that it still seems to catch them as good as it ever has. And so guys like Brent Chapman, I've seen him do this. I've seen other guys. It's like the chatterbait has now become a core lure of theirs. And working with Brent this week. And by the way, before I get into this anymore, Brent was so kind enough. He's got these. Speaking of like being dehydrated. He found out that I was dehydrated and had to get out of the game. He came to my room and he dropped off these 2 bottles of, it's called Electrolyte. So it's another version. It's like Gatorlyte, it's like Pedialyte, but it's another company doing their version of a drink that's going to get you out of your dehydration funk. And so Electrolyte is another one. You can see them I've seen them in grocery stores, and I think I've seen them in like gas station convenience stores too. But that's another option. You just, kudos to Brent, and super thankful that, he was nice enough to do that. So I actually brought those out for the remaining days that I was filming and drank them, and they were fantastic. But yeah, just if you're going out fishing, you're, fun fishing or whatever, just tournament fishing, you should just have one of those on board in case something like this happens to you. But thank you to Brent for that. But back to the bladed jig thing. So I've seen Brent and these other anglers just employ that chatterbait or that bladed jig and just cover the hell out of water. They're covering tons of water, and you could almost cover more water with a chatterbait than you can a spinnerbait, because with a spinnerbait, there's more of those blades. Depends on the spinnerbait, depends on the blades you're using. But there's just more water resistance. It takes a little bit more time to retrieve, I think, than a chatterbait. So you can maybe make retrieves faster. And that bait, that it's the key to that bait, I think, is not, it's you're covering water. It's a very fast moving lure, It's a huge key to it. But the part that makes these fish react and eat it more than anything, I think, is the fact of that blade at the head, on the head of the jig. It's making that thing move so erratically. It's kicking out crazy vibrations. It's just something that I think it's erratic enough when you're just retrieving it straight, as opposed to when you're retrieving a spinnerbait straight, it's way more erratic, just by doing a straight retrieve. And so that's my theory on why I think that bait just continues to catch fish. It's incredible, really. So if you're a tournament fisherman, you're just a bass fisherman, fun fishing out there, I think it's kind of crazy. I've come to the opinion that it's crazy not to have a chatterbait style, bladed jig style lure tied on. I'm actually starting to feel a little dehydrated right now. I am going to drink a little bit of water. I'm starting to get maybe the beginnings of a headache, and I'm going to drink some water right now. Actually, it's flavor infused water. Let's call it that. Because as I stated in the previous podcast, I can't stand just water. Okay, so that was something that I really want to touch upon from filming, last week's team series. It just, that chatterbait is just something. I just can't get over it. Really amazing lure. I need to be throwing it more, but I can't. Again, too many northern pike up here, so I've got to use the less expensive version of the chatterbait. I do want to try out that slobber knocker, the Berkeley slobber knocker, that's a hell of a name. I do want to test that out to see, how they're similar. I think they're not as expensive, which is important to me. But I know there's different versions. Strike King has the Thunder Cricket. Let me know what you guys think is the best option, best alternative to the chatterbait in the comments. And by the way, so if you're watching this, thanks for watching it on YouTube. But if you're listening to this, you can watch the video podcast. If you want to watch the video podcast, you can watch the video podcast on the Angling Uploaded YouTube channel. So search Angling Uploaded on YouTube. Go to the playlist, another fishing podcast, and then just search for the most recent. It'll be, the most recent podcasts are first. So that's how you find us. Angling Uploaded on YouTube. All right. And then go to the Another Fishing podcast playlist. So what was I saying? I was rambling about something. Of course I was rambling. Yeah, I think we covered it. That's the tough part when you're hosting alone. You don't have someone to be like, yeah, you were just talking about this, but we're just going to keep on going on. So, Andy Montgomery, what a blast. I love fishing with Andy. And let me tell you, it was the second to last day. It was raining so hard for the first period and a half that my rain gear failed again. Breathable rain gear, I tell you, is so overrated. It's like, I just want Gordon's fisherman rain gear. Like it's impervious to anything. I don't need it to breathe. This breathable rain gear, you got to treat it so much that it's really a hassle. And so I just like the old school. It's almost like you're just wearing a tarp, That's what kind of rain gear I want to start wearing. I know you don't want to wear that stuff. Really, you kind of need to have 3 sets of rain gear. You need like a breathable, lightweight pair for the summer. Pair of rain gear, is that how you say it? You need breathable, lightweight rain gear in the summer, okay? And then you can have you want to have some heavy rain gear. Heavy rain gear. That is the Gordon's fisherman rain gear. But you probably need to have something in between that Gordon's rain. Well, you probably need Gordon's rain gear. That thick stuff that doesn't breathe. Times when it's an absolute deluge in the summer. Maybe you need 4 sets of rain gear. So you need breathable rain gear for summer. But you also need the lightweight Gordon's fisherman rain gear. Okay, so impervious, does not breathe. So I guess what I'm saying is you need breathable rain gear and non-breathable rain gear in the summer, breathable rain gear and non-breathable rain gear for colder environments. That's what I'm really lobbying. So 4 sets of rain gear to absolutely break your bank. You won't have any money left over, but you might be comfortable. And I want to emphasize might, because I have yet to hear of anybody that actually stays dry with any rain gear. With that being said, boy, that Gordon's fisherman rain gear has got to be better than I'm still holding out hope. So, okay, I digress. So we're moving on. I've talked about, let's see, so Andy Montgomery. It was absolutely the second to last day was a deluge. And my lens started fogging up, which is like the worst, because what happens is, so if you have any experience filming in torrential rainfall, just any kind of, if there's a lot of humidity and there's just you got enough moisture blowing into your lens, it doesn't even have to be that much rain necessarily, but if it's blowing into your lens is going to eventually fog up, and you will not have a usable picture if that keeps happening. And when it's raining a lot, there's no way to prevent it from happening. And my lens started fogging up, and it just gets to be like, at first, it's like a Barbara Walters special. If you're familiar back in the day, Barbara Walters, she used to use a very soft focus. Everything looked very dreamy in her interviews. Barbara Walters, for you young kids, she was this kind of, she'd do these interviews with celebrities, and she'd ask these hard questions, and all her interviews were like it seemed very dreamy because she was using, I even heard that they might even put Vaseline on the lens, just a thin layer of Vaseline, so it just made everything seem very soft, very dreamy. And it was mostly done, I learned later, just to hide her wrinkles. She was very vain, and she wanted to appear very youthful, even though she was, I'm sure, like when I was watching those specials, which, to be honest, I wasn't watching a lot of them, but she was probably in her 60s when really, 50s, 60s when she was really in the height of her career. But so everything looked very out of, except for when it cut to the person that was in the interview, that she was interviewing, that was a perfectly clear picture. But when it cut back to Barbara, it was like you were back in a dream state again. So that's what kind of looks like what's happening when you're filming. I'm out there filming on the lake. I'm filming Andy, and the whole lens is it's starting, and it starts in the middle of the lens, and you're kind of trying to shoot around it, and then it just that fog just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You're in a Barbara Walters special. and then it gets to be like you're in a cloud filming. And then that's when it's useless. And again, had to call on my buddy, producer Randy White, to come give me a new lens. Got a new lens on there, and we were all good to go. So that's basically what the fun stuff that I had going on last week. I thought I'd share it with you. I've heard people say that it's got to be cool to do what I do, and granted, it is. I enjoy what I do. I don't enjoy the flying so much, and I don't enjoy inclement weather so much, but I love the majority of the anglers. I love the crew of Major League Fishing, and I love fishing, obviously. I love being out on the water. I love boats. So, you take the good with the bad, and thankfully there's more good than bad when I'm out filming for Major League Fishing. So that was my week, and let's turn the page here, going through my notes, and we're going to go into what I'm thinking about filming this week for later content on the Angling Uploaded YouTube channel. Also, just so you're aware, I am also, let me get some Mio flavored water here. Don't want to be dehydrated. This is also these little spritzes of flavor that I put in my water. Mio is the company that makes this stuff. Also, there's energy in there, so this is going to help me power through this podcast, keep that energy up. I want to be entertaining. And so this week I'm thinking about, okay, when you're trying to maintain a YouTube channel and develop a successful YouTube channel, you need to be providing content. You need to be consistent. You need to be following trends, and you need to be feeding the algorithm. Very, very important to feed the algorithm. I've seen it now. All you guys, I want this podcast too to kind of be helpful to people that want to start their own YouTube channel, because if I tell you all the trials and tribulations that I've been through, hopefully it'll help you avoid some pitfalls, and you can make a more successful YouTube channel and not be such a dumbass like I've been with this thing. So that's one of the reasons why I want to make this a part of this podcast, is just hopefully this can help some of you guys out there. But yeah, you got to be consistent. And what happens is, I've seen it with Instagram, I've seen it with YouTube, the wheels will start turning, right? When you're uploading content on a regular basis. And so it'll start, like, you start seeing your views going, especially I've noticed on Instagram, on their reels, like you start posting, reels consistently, and you start, your other reels start doing good. That same thing happens on YouTube. Very, very similar, right? So consistency, super important. Post videos up regularly. Your other videos will do well because you're posting new videos. I've seen it. I've seen it with Instagram. I've seen it on YouTube. It's super important. Now, where I have been an utter fool is that I have stopped and started. Stopped and started way too many times. You can't do that in the social media realm. You have to stick with it. And that means, like, even if, you're only able to get one video up a week, I really recommend, if you're trying to generate some income on this, you need to just post, at least one video up a week if you can't get more up. It's not going to kill you if you miss posting 1 week, right? But you're shooting yourself in the foot every time you do that. So you want to make it it's important, super important, that you want to really make it a point to post as much as you can and not quit doing it. Because when you quit doing it, let's say you quit for a month, right? Which I have. I've done that multiple times, as I'm sure you're aware. it will, I shouldn't say I'm sure you're aware. Maybe you're listening to this for the first time or watching this podcast for the first time. I should not make such assumptions. But you have to, if you stop for a long period of time, you then have to begin climbing up the mountain again. So don't get in that situation where you have to start climbing up the mountain again. The longer you wait, the higher that mountain is to climb. So get started, find out how you can be consistent at it, and then execute. And the reality is, I am a nut when it comes to, I like things to be perfect. The universe is not perfect, but I like things to be what I consider perfect. And it's really been a hindrance to the growth of what I'm doing. And so don't do that. Don't do what I've done in the past. So it's consistency. Find out how you can be consistent, what works for your schedule, what works for your lifestyle, and then execute. Execution is key because you can have everything. It doesn't, how things look, how your video looks or how your channel looks, just the aesthetics of things. It's really, really down the ladder as compared to other things that you need to really be concentrating on. Consistency, I would actually put at the top. So consistency. So that's my little rant. I don't know why I went on that rant, but it is what it is. So we're gonna go. I'll tell you what I'm kind of planning on this week. What I'm planning on filming for future content. I am thinking this time of year here up in Minnesota. I live in central Minnesota. You want to I live near the upper Mississippi River, right? It's got incredible smallmouth bass fishing. I fish a warm water discharge all through the winter. And that water basically stays at 40 degrees in the winter. It doesn't get any lower than that for the most part, especially if you're closer to the warm water discharge. But it's basically 40 degrees all winter long, and the smallmouth can get really packed up in predictable areas. I'm hoping we've had a drought, and I'm hoping that the water level is now rising because we've had some really heavy rainfall. So I'm hoping the water levels are rising. It's getting that river up, because when that happens, these smallmouth, it can be like, it's such a cliche, but it's like taking candy from a baby. You want to find areas that have slack water adjacent to current, find slack water areas, and they can just be packed in there and very predictable and sometimes quite easy to catch. So catch and release, super critical. And so we've got really cold temperatures now. Heck, it's this morning it was like 22 degrees. And so the water temperatures are dropping. It's starting to limit the things that I can do now. So, I love channel catfishing, but that channel catfish thing on some of the small rivers around me is probably, at least in the rivers, I think is probably done. I think I can go up to this famed horseshoe chain of lakes that is north of me, and it's got it's a chain of lakes that's connected to the Sauk River. And the Sauk River, I'm sure the Sauk River's got channel catfish in it, but the DNR stocked channel catfish into this chain of lakes to control. I think they were controlling some kind of a bait fish. They wanted to control some kind of a bait fish that was in there. But unfortunately for walleye fishermen, it got out of control, and the channel catfish got out of control and took over the fishery. I'm totally fine with it. I am happy with that, because there's so many other walleye, well, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of pressured walleye fisheries in Minnesota. But I think it's okay to have a really great, fantastic channel catfish fishery that's so unique. I think the DNR has seen how special it is, so now they put regulations on the body of water so that it can grow bigger channel catfish. So, that's a video that's coming down the pike here soon. I was out there a little over a week ago and caught some. Actually, I wish I had more time out there because it was actually really good fishing. But it's going to be a great video. But it's that fishery. Now that it's getting colder, I was out there when it was 55 degrees, and water temperature, it's dropped significantly now. And I've caught them in the wintertime under ice there and caught them really well. But I don't know about open water, and, and I kind of know where they were a week and a half ago. But I'm like, okay, now the water temperature is probably low 40s, I'm saying. Low 40s, something like that, maybe high 30s. And so I'm like, can I still catch these channel catfish, in open water, kind of, I don't know. I think I can, but I'm like, do I want to invest my time just trying to make a video going over there and trying to catch open water catfish, channel catfish in very cold water? I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm still going to do it. But so I'm debating of, this week, Mississippi River smallmouth, channel catfish on the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes. And by the way, if you are listening to this podcast, you watch the video podcast, and any of these fisheries, I try to not say where I fish, okay? The Horseshoe Chain of Lakes is a little bit different. I'm more open about talking about that because they're in each of the lakes that are kind of connected to each other, the fishery is a little bit different. The channel catfish fishery is a little different. In the past, there's been a real problem with stunting there. Stunting of the channel catfish. So the DNR, the Minnesota DNR, put regulations in to allow for, keeping more of the smaller catfish, and it has really helped. So if you're listening to this podcast and if you kind of have figured out, or, the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes, if you want to go out there and fish, or if you figured out another body of water that, you've seen me fish here and you want to go fish it, please just practice catch and release. Just be or selective harvest. Just be very good to the fishery if you've learned about it here, okay, on Angling Uploaded or another fishing podcast. That's all I ask. Please just be respectful to the fishery because this, in particular, this Horseshoe Chain of Lakes, it really is a special fishery, and I think with these smaller catfish being taken out, less stunting occurring, bigger channels now showing up in the system, bigger channel catfish, I think we really need to protect it, and it's gonna get better and better, but we need to protect that fishery. So I'm debating about going there, and then the two other options, St. Croix Lake Sturgeon, St. Croix River, not far from me, is a phenomenal lake sturgeon fishery, and there's a lot of them. And might even think about going down to Red Wing, Minnesota, for some Mississippi walleye, Mississippi River walleye fishing, like wing dam stuff. Debating about whether to do that. So tell me in the comments what I should do. What do you think I should do? Honestly, if you want to put comments, I don't know if you could put comments if you're listening on podcasts. Can you put comments in the podcast? The best way, if you want me to be able to see what your input, like what you think I should do, go to Angling Uploaded, our YouTube channel, and just comment on this podcast. All right, so that's what I'm thinking. So let's get into, that's basically Angling Uploaded, what's been going on. We'll get into upcoming content here at the end of the show here, what I have planned for the videos coming up the next couple of weeks. But let's get into fishing news, shall we? All right, so some MLF anglers, as I was saying, are not happy at all with what is going on with Major League Fishing, all the changes that are being made. And so, before I get into that, so I've got all kind of stuff I need to, show you here. We'll go through this real quick. I wanted to show, this is the video podcast. You can check it out. This is the team series, some pictures. This is one of the fisheries we went to. Beautiful ramp, beautiful sunrises every morning. It was almost like to make a beautiful sunrise, you have to have some cloud cover, and we had just the right amount of cloud cover, almost like every day it felt like, to just make these beautiful sunrises. One of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen. There with shards of light coming off the sun as it's rising over the horizon. And then the man here, Takahiro Omori, going out with him. And I'd love to tell you what happened in the team series, but you guys are going to have to find out later when it airs on television. So had a great time with Tak. Here he is in front of that amazingly beautiful Texas sunrise. All right, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And here we go. We're going to go into some news here in Major League Fishing. We're going to start it off with all the Major League Fishing news going on. As I said, a number of Major League Fishing anglers are not happy. There's also, I guess, talk of some of these anglers trying to form it's called an Anglers Protection Committee, I think was the name for it. And so it's basically it's almost like it seems like it's sort of a union is what they're trying to create. And I've heard that, we'll get into it here. Let's just go. This is from Bass Fan. All right. Actually, is this from Read the Bass? Yeah, this is from Bass Fan. I got a cat here. I got my orange cat who is a natural born killer, meowing like crazy, wants to be outside. Actually, I think, this is from the fine folks at Target, not Target Walleye, but why am I drawing a blank right now? Bass Blaster. Here it is. Some MLF, anglers ain't liking what they're seeing. An unknown number of MLF Bass Pro Tour pros have gotten together to make their thoughts known on the MLF's recent announcement that it will significantly shrink the size of the Bass Pro Tour field in 2025. Okay, here's some. So this came from. So Bass Blaster got this from Bass Fan. The statement from the group called the Angler, here it is, the Angler Protection Committee. The anglers, passionate about the growth and success of the league, agree that adjustments in the business model are necessary and are eager to work towards an agreement that assures everyone's continued prosperity. Again, this is from the Angler Protection Committee. Having built their careers within the league, the majority of the anglers are original founding members who possess a genuine commitment to the continual advancement of the MLF platform. As we embark on this review process, our primary goal is to establish a stronger and more fruitful relationship with the league that can endure for years to come. That seems like it was written by a lawyer, which I'm sure it was, Let's see. The goal is to sit down at the table and find a viable solution for both sides. What, meaning Major League Fishing, have proposed doesn't work for our side. And that is the Angler Protection Committee, and that is from Bass Blaster. That's Jay Kumar. He's the founder of Bass Blaster. So that's from that, and this is, let me get this straight here. I want to make sure I got this. So that was from the Angler Protection Committee, right? And so we'll bring this up now. And this is from Boyd Duckett. He's the CEO of Major League Fishing. He had no comment on the formation of the APC, the Anglers Protection Committee, and didn't plan to participate in negotiations with the group. He said angler issues are routinely addressed through the Major League Fishing Anglers Association. Duckett said he empathizes with anglers who will no longer have a place on the BBT after next year, but he believes that the reduction is necessary in order for the league to achieve its goal of increased online viewership by non-traditional fans. I got to take a sip of meal water here for a second. Okay. For us to be successful, the model doesn't work with 80. We need 50. It's going to be good for professional fishing in the long run, but the downside is it's hard on those who can't make it. Everyone is still going to have a fair chance to make it. I wish we could feed 400 of them, but we can't right now. So as I said in the last podcast, the great thing about this sport is that you can have, in the sport of pro fishing, you can have a lot of a variety of participants, right? Age isn't a significant factor, and a person's physical, their physicality isn't an important factor as composed to other sports, right? But I think that also plays into, like, a lot of people think that they can do it, right? And so for me, not everybody can do it. And if you're going to make this a legitimate sport, as I've said in the past, as a kid and a young adult, I don't really feel this way anymore. I'm not so worried about bass fishing becoming mainstream, quite frankly, because I'm worried about the added pressure that it's going to put on lakes. Okay, so this isn't such a huge thing to me anymore. But I still love bass fishing, pro fishing. I'm not so worried about whether we make it popular for everyone. I don't really, I'm out of the whole popularity thing. As I've gotten older, I find it less and less important. But anyway, if a lot more people think that they can make it in pro fishing because there aren't the limits there are in traditional, more mainstream sports like the NFL, baseball, any mainstream sport, it's incredibly hard. You're an elite athlete to be at the top of that game and to stay there, and you're kind of a freak of nature. And with bass fishing, there's a lot more people that can come in. So I think and I hate to say this because there's going to be people that I really, really like, I really like that aren't going to make it. But I think what Boyd is talking about, and obviously you're seeing people with these public statements, they got to watch themselves. And all of us do it. All of us in some ways are politicians. We complain about politicians, but in many ways, everybody's a politician. We can't just, when we're saying something publicly or even talking to someone, we can't just really tell, maybe there's someone you don't like, but you have to have a relationship with that person, an acquaintance that you're like, okay, you can't be complete, you got to keep things copacetic, right? So that's what these public statements are, just everybody's keeping everything copacetic. The Anglers Protection Committee is like just making sure. But the reality is that, for Major League Fishing's business model, heck, Jerry McInnes at Bass, he wanted it at 50. He's wanted that magic 50 number for a long time. He wanted that for the Bassmaster Tournament Series, So I think that 50 number, for really being able to cover these anglers better, first and foremost, it's really, well, first and foremost, I say first and foremost too much. I'm going to try to cut back on that. But it's easier to cover 50 guys than 80 guys, okay? So because it's a lot take it from me in video production, it is a lot of work to be able to cover that many anglers out on a massive playing field. And so that makes it easier to cover as a sport. That potentially can save on expenses. It's definitely going to save on expenses. That's just the reality. It's going to save on expenses. You don't need, and I hate saying this because I love the Major League Fishing officials. You talk about guys that love the sport, super passionate for the sport, that are really bending over backwards to do what they're doing. And these guys are really underappreciated, and they are really the lifeblood of making this whole operation work in many respects. So, but that being said, and I'll say this too, as a camera guy, I'm expensive. Okay, not only do I have a day rate that needs to be paid, but also just my hotel, airfare. I get a per diem, so that's expensive. And then you have the boat officials, and they have expenses. So cutting that down is going to save not only, I think I have to agree with Boyd. It's going to be better. It's going to be easier to cover these guys, to promote 50 guys than it is 80 guys. And also it's just going to save money. It's going to save money. And honestly, I've talked about this in the last podcast. The economy's got there's shaky indicators, let's put it that way. I hope that's not the case. I hope things are going to be good, but I think all these moves are just being done to make Major League Fishing more lean and able to survive any potential economic storms that are on the horizon. So, and I understand, like, people are mad at Boyd, and my experience with Boyd has actually been interesting, because he's a wealthy guy, but he's been very kind. He's been very candid, very open. And anytime that I've covered him, he's been a pleasure to work with. I don't know. I don't have I don't have a lot of experience with Boyd Duckett, but that has been my experience. And I think it's foolish to assume that he's making, I don't know. I don't like to make, because someone's wealthy, to go, oh, they're this way because they're wealthy, or, I hate doing that. I hate making generalizations about anybody. And I've heard that. I've heard those kinds of things be mentioned about him. I don't think that's fair. Obviously, I'm employed. Major League Fishing is a fantastic client of mine, so I'm not going to talk bad about them. That would not be good for me. So I'm putting that out there. I've said this before, but I am biased here. But I do not have a negative viewpoint. I legitimately, even if I wasn't working for Major League Fishing, I do not have a negative view of Boyd Duckett. I've been in business. I've been in a failing business in my late 20s. It was so stressful. Honestly, I can't even tell you. We had employees. It was just a cluster, quite frankly. It was so stressful trying to just, I was way in over my head. Both my business partner and I were way in over our heads. And I just remember if it's for when people are running a successful business, you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes just to keep things going, And so I think you need to look at things through that lens. And you'd be like, well, and there's some things that you can't be completely open about when you're running a business, financials and, some of the more, there's just some stuff that you can't, that has to remain just, within the knowledge of the top people running the thing, unfortunately. I'm all about transparency, but there are some things that are, really just, it could be potentially detrimental to the business if and this goes with any business, that if things got out, So I see that aspect. I saw that aspect when I was unsuccessfully running a business with an employee. So I kind of feel like I have that, I have a little bit different viewpoint because of that terrible experience that I went through. It was so stressful. I can't even tell you guys. It was so absolutely stressful. I thought I was going to go bankrupt. It was so god-awful stressful. So I try to remember that. Like, people running businesses, it's extremely stressful. And I would not want to be in Boyd Duckett's shoes, because to have anglers not happy with you, and then you're trying to run a business, and and Boyd is one of these guys that I've met several of this type of person in my career now. Johnny Morris, I've worked with Johnny Morris a lot from Bass Pro Shops. I've flown around with Johnny in his private jet, and I've been around very wealthy people, very successful business people before, and even other top guys at Major League Fishing, and these guys are almost like they're just wired different, right? They are just business people. They love starting businesses. They love running businesses. A guy like me, I would be a stressed out maniac. I couldn't imagine having all of these, hands in different businesses and running things. And I know some anglers, they don't like that about Boyd Duckett. But I got to tell you, with Boyd, it's just, I get a sense, and I've seen this with other business types, that it's in their name. They can't help it. They got to be just doing other stuff. It's like something that just they're passionate about, running businesses, starting businesses. And so, but at the same time, you got to understand that those are the kinds of people that give me a job. These guys that start businesses. The reason that I have a job is because there's people like that doing these things out there. Now, granted, I'm not going to go on down this road, but there's uber wealthy people that are fantastic. But there's uber wealthy people. There's all stripes, right? I just don't care for the ones that think they're gods or greedy, and that that they're just. I don't get that sense with Boyd Duckett. So that is my 2 cents. I'm not just saying that. I would say that if I wasn't doing any work with Major League Fishing. So that is that's how I feel about it. Now let me continue on here. This is regarding Major League Fishing here. This is Jay Kumar. He runs the Bass Blaster newsletter. Check out the Bass Blaster newsletter if you haven't. I get a lot of my info from these guys. Jay Kumar is running the show there. He's been passionate about bass fishing for a very long time. Does a lot of media stuff, including Bass Blaster here. So this is his opinion on it. What's going on with Major League Fishing? The part I got to question, this is him. The part I got to question is chasing non-traditional fans. In my experience and observation, that has never worked. Not for any sport, other than a little with physical, smaller venue arena type sports. I recently was talking to a guy involved in professional lacrosse, which is trying to do the same thing as bass fishing has tried in the past. Changing formats and rules to try to get a bigger TV audience outside of lacrosse fans. I gave bass fishing as an example. Those changes haven't worked to get loads of non-bass fishing fans. They start to alienate the core fans, and eventually the formats come back to the traditional format because that's where that's what the core folks want. Core folks want. I know for a fact that a lot of actual lacrosse players don't watch or follow pro lacrosse, but they do follow college lacrosse. To me, the low-hanging fruit would be to find out why that is and go after those peeps to get them to watch it and talk about it. I think folks in pro lacrosse and pro bass fishing have to ask, how far are we willing to change what the sport is just to get more eyeballs? And are we cool with the athletes primarily being vehicles for media consumption? So that is Jay Kumar, his opinion. And he goes on. So am I saying Boyd is wrong? No. I actually think that in some ways a smaller field would be good and interesting. I'm just saying that I've never seen changes to chase people outside of bass fishermen actually work. If MLF can make it happen, great, I'll learn something. All I'm saying is take care of the core. Are 100% of bass fishermen watching and following MLF? If not, why? That's the low-hanging stuff in my 2 cents. Beyond that, if dollars is the issue here, in my 2 cents, there's a lot more of it to be had in bass and outside of the traditional tournament plus media model, and bass is the 800-pound gorilla there anyhow. Ask Tommy Sanders for his silverback gorilla impression. It's good. So you've lost me here, Jay. Lastly, I hope MLF does everything it can to bring back no entry fees. That was the jewel in their crown. I understand COVID messing it up and all that, but I hope that's a goal for bass as well. Yeah. So I hear you. Yeah. No entry fees as Bass Pro Tour started. It was that way, but then COVID hit. Things changed after COVID. The world changed after COVID, unfortunately. Brings up that's very, very interesting. As far as I hear what he's saying, you don't want to lose that core. The core is super important, but I think what's also important too, and I think this is maybe I think this is more important. So, when I got into bass fishing, I got into it. I got to qualify that. When I got into competitive bass fishing, pro bass fishing, I was like, wow, what is this? I'd never heard of pro bass fishing before. That was because of the Bassmaster Tournament Series. Way back in the day, this man right behind me here, Bob Cobb, got his autograph there. Big fan. He was the producer of the Bassmasters back in the day. That show hooked me on professional bass fishing. I was just a young kid, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and that's what I wanted to do with my life, the rest of my life. And because of that show, because of Bob Cobb. And so watching that show, that was like the 5-fish limit. Maybe even at the beginning, it might have been 7. That's how long ago it was. 7 fish you could keep. But then it got to the 5 fish, So, 5 fish in the live well, weigh them in at the end. And so I grew up on that. I grew up on the 5-fish limit, put them in the live well, take them to the weigh-in. That was my world. And that was what I thought was how you did things. Major League Fishing, when did they start? 2012 we started. That was the first show that aired, something like that, 2012, 2013. And I've said this to the producer of Major League Fishing, my buddy Randy. We started Bass Pro Shops together. And I told him, so he's producing the TV show. I told him, I said, you got to remember, man, with what you guys are doing here, with edited shows and how you're putting this together, with Every Fish Counts, there are new anglers that they're coming into it. They don't possibly even have any notion that you could fish professionally, or bass fishing is even a thing, or you can make money fishing. There's a new crop of young anglers that are now like, that is their reality. Like the Bassmasters, the 5-fish limit, when I was growing up, getting hooked on that was my reality. Well, there's a new option. There's a new reality. And Major League Fishing is that reality. And so, but when you keep switching things back and forth, and going back to the 5-fish limit, and now going back to Every Fish Counts, you're kind of screwing yourself a bit. So because you remember, you got these new crop of young anglers that this is their reality. They grew up, they've been, they started, heck, they could have been like, I was like 12 or something, 11 years old, watching my first Bassmasters and just going, what in the hell is this? I need to get all up in this stuff. You got that same thing happening with Major League Fishing, guys. And so, but when you're changing things, you're unsure, you're changing things. I get it, I get but there's also a lot of cooks in the kitchen, if you know what I mean. You got to, at some point, you got to stick to your guns and go, you know what? We got to hold steady here. You got a new crop of anglers, new, fresh, crop here. And they've grown up on this every fish counts. You got to remember that. That's super important. I think I think I think the more I've thought about it, every fish counts is really what the score tracker did too. Score tracker is super important, and the catch, weigh, and release is super important. But that every fish counts, really, that's Major League Fishing was really known for that too. Maybe more so than anything. So going back to this, got to stick with it. Going back to every fish counts. And I just think that's going to be better for Major League Fishing, going to be better for the sport. I think there was a bigger statement that I wanted to make to bring all this. I'm going off on the rails here again. But I just Major League Fishing needs to know, they're still in Major League Fishing is still in its infancy here, and you're getting new anglers coming in that are like, what is this? This is amazing. So I think we gotta, I think we've got to, I think you gotta just stick with it. I think you gotta go with it, and now that they're going back to every fish counts, let's not go back to 5 fish then. Let's not do that now then. Every fish counts then. I mean, the wishy-washiness, I think, isn't positive for the organization. So I think sticking with every fish counts, sticking with it, maybe making some tweaks to that variable weight, but sticking with it is probably the best course of action for the organization. All right, moving on. So forward-facing sonar is always, everybody loves talking about forward-facing sonar. And I saw this in, this was also in the Bass Blaster newsletter. This is from Bernie Schultz. He's a veteran pro in bass fishing. Whether you agree or not, a heavy reliance on electronics drastically reduces the instinctual aspects of the game, a critical trait that separates so many pros. And so that's Bernie Schultz saying that. And then Jay Kumar says, for what it's worth, I agree and disagree. I agree that it takes away the use of some instincts, but I really do believe and have seen that it also creates new instincts. I agree with that. I will agree with Jay Kumar's opinion there. But I will also add that it does, I have seen it firsthand now. I'm pretty sure I've seen it firsthand. I'm not going to mention any anglers. I have seen some anglers now just almost not looking up on a new body of water, not looking up, just looking down at their forward-facing sonar and not really just spending too much time just searching, I would say, instead of being like, going down a bank, looking at the conditions, going, okay, these conditions, weather conditions, this water clarity, time of the year, water temperature, I should be doing this, and then just going down a bank. That's huge, because the reality is when there's going to be some times where if you're just like so reliant upon, okay, I got to see whether a fish is there, before I fish, you're going to be eating up a lot of time in a tournament, just in general, but especially in a tournament situation. So I'm going to make, I'm going to say that there are times, man, when you just need to start turning and burning, baby. You have confidence that this lure should work. Weather conditions are all right, perfect for it, or, nothing's really perfect, but, it just feels right. That's instinctual. Not instinctual, maybe, but it's more like you just have experience. It's experience that that these conditions, this type of lure, it should get them, right? And just go. And just head down and go. Not head down looking at the forward-facing sonar, but just ripping and fishing. And so I've seen that with some of these younger guys. I'm like, dude, you need to just start fishing, And granted, this is really easy. I'm like an armchair quarterback, but on the back of the boat. And trust me, these guys are way better than I am. Okay. But I have seen it. And I think that that does hinder some of these dudes, some of these younger guys. So I do agree with Bernie Schultz there. Okay, moving on. So this is okay. Let's hold off on that. This story, we'll leave this one story. I'm going to put a little asterisk next to this so I come back to it. This is going to be the news story that we keep for the end. Pretty ridiculous. Acme Tackle is buying moonshine lures. So if you're a northern guy, okay, you're familiar with this bait called the shiver minnow, made by Moonshine Lures. It's kind of like I gotta get some more water here. Stand by. It's kind of like it's that genre of, I guess people call them glide baits. Vertical jigging like glide baits. The jigging wrap, okay? So imagine a jigging wrap without the front hook, essentially. And then that's essentially I'm simplifying this, but that's essentially what a shiver minnow is. And guys like Keith Cavias in the walleye world, guys like Keith Cavias, Gary Parsons, they've really been singing the praises of this lure, for open water, just because it has that same erratic action, similar erratic action to, that jigging wrap, that action, but for open water. And so Acme Tackle is buying Moonshine Lures that has that shiver minnow. I think this is probably a fantastic acquisition because I'm really, really loving what Acme is doing. Acme, back in the day when I was a kid fishing, Acme was making a lot of lures for like trout and salmon. The Castmaster, the Phoebe. I was using these lures for trout out in California when I lived out there. A lot of my stuff was Acme stuff. And now they really got into the bass fishing market, and their attention to detail on their lures is really, really phenomenal. Their packaging's phenomenal. They're really doing great stuff. So I think them buying Moonshine makes a lot of sense. So let me just read this press release. Acme Tackle Company, made by Hard and Soft Fishing. So that is the bigger company. All these companies and who owns them and all these, it gets to be complex. But anyway, Acme Tackle Company, made by Hard and Soft Fishing, and the makers of Acme, Kalen's, Beaver Dam, Reef Runner, Uncle Josh, Adam, and Bede, is excited to announce that it has acquired Moonshine Lures LLC of Perkins, Michigan, which I believe is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. For the past 17 years, Moonshine has manufactured industry-leading super glow tackle products, including spoons, flies, dodgers, and the shiver minnow. That, I would say, is its real pride and joy there. The flagship lure there is of Moonshine Lures is the shiver minnow. Moonshine owners Tom and Beth Goodwer, I believe that's maybe how you spell their name, and their team will remain with Acme post-acquisition and will continue to produce the high-quality products that Moonshine is known for. So that is, I think that's pretty cool. I need to be... The thing about these shiver minnows, too, walleye guys know about them, but bass guys don't. And I've talked to some bass guys. I've talked about this in the past. So what's interesting about fishing is how segmented it can be, how compartmentalized the different kinds of fishing. So you got walleye fishermen doing their thing, you got bass fishermen doing their thing, you got salmon fishermen doing their thing, you got muskie fishermen doing their thing, on and on and on. And so a lot of times those groups, unless you're a multi-species guy like I am, a lot of times those groups don't even talk to each other. They don't even know. You don't even know what, if you're a walleye guy, you don't even know necessarily what the interesting things, new techniques, new lures that the bass guys are doing. The same is true. The bass guys don't know these new things that walleye guys are doing, right? So like when Slow Death came out, which is, if you don't know what Slow Death is, it's like a subtle trolling, you're pulling it behind, it's it's a spinner rig, right, with a crawler harness, and on that the crawler harness, one of the hooks, I believe it's just one hook. Yeah, I don't believe you can actually use a crawler harness because it would ruin the action. But one of the hooks, it's just it's an Aberdeen hook that's bent. Okay, that bend, you thread that night crawler. It's a half a night crawler. You thread that half a night crawler on there, and that bend of that Aberdeen hook makes that night crawler spin, right? So I don't even know if you want to use a spinner for this. I mean, I think some guys might do this with Slow Death, have a spinner on there, but it might not even be with a spinner. I'm trying to remember. But so you pull that slowly behind you, troll that, you can drift it, you can, but you got like a bottom bouncer, and then you have that setup, that night crawler spinning behind the bottom bouncer. It's typically done with a bottom bouncer. And that really triggers these walleyes, and it's been a very effective technique. And there's other techniques, the shiver minnow being one of them in the walleye world. Bass guys don't even know about the shiver minnow, the shiver minnow, and also that I've thought about it too as far as a finesse technique. Taking, like just an artificial, like just a 4-inch worm or something with that bend in that, like an Aberdeen hook with a bend, and using it, throwing that on a Carolina rig for bass fishing. My point is there's not overlap typically. Another example is that guys started winning walleye tournaments with spinner baits. And so I talked to Keith Gavais about this. Like there's these Lake Oahe and some other reservoirs in the Dakotas have a ton of flooded trees, and walleyes get in there. And guys in the past would just troll crankbaits through that stuff and lose a billion crankbaits. Until one guy's like, well, why don't we try trolling spinnerbaits through that? Well, a spinnerbait is not used in walleye fishing until these guys start winning tournaments doing it. And I'll never forget this. Keith told me, he's like, he didn't realize that. Well, he didn't think that walleyes would be able to get the spinnerbait because it was too big, and the way the construction of the spinnerbait, he thought it was too big, essentially, and also just he worried about the blades and the arm impeding a walleye getting it, eating it, and so it just kind of blew my mind that. If I was losing a ton of crankbaits trying to, troll these crankbaits through all of this flooded, these flooded trees, just the fact that it never even entered these walleye guys' minds for the longest time, I mean for decades, that maybe a bass lure called a spinnerbait would come through that stuff way better. And then also an added bonus is that pike have a harder time with the way that this a spinnerbait is constructed with that metal arm. It's harder for a pike to cut the line with a spinnerbait. So there's big pike in the Dakotas and the reservoirs out there. So it's one of those things where for a guy, for an accomplished of a walleye angler, legendary walleye angler as Keith is, it really powers home my point very well that he never even thought that a spinnerbait would work well in that application because a spinnerbait is a bass lure. So I just think, we're talking about the shiver minnow. The shiver minnow, anyway, that's something that, the Acme is buying now, making a lot of cool lures, and that is something that you bass fishermen should check out because it is something that the walleye guys are using, erratic, and it's something that I think would have some applications in bass fishing. So walleye fishing applications into the bass fishing world, you really should be kind of seeing what's going on. If you're a multi-species person in particular, you're going to have a better idea. But if you're a gung-ho like bass guy or a walleye guy, you should be kind of looking at what other anglers, guys that are more focused on different species, what they are doing, because a lot of that stuff overlaps well. Okay, so there's that. All right, so these unbelievable. This is so funny how this blew up. So everybody remembers, I'm sure, the guys that were cheating in the Walleye tournament. When was that? Last year, like the two guys in a team. I think it was a team tournament. These Walleye guys that were cheating made national news. They're sticking lead in the bellies of these walleyes. They're just stuffing it down their gullets and then going in and winning tournaments by, that with walleyes that are just full of lead weight. And they got caught, made national news, made international news. And you'll see on YouTube, this is how YouTube works. It's really something everybody started talking about, and all those videos has done really well. So maybe that's why I'm doing this video right now. Maybe. But it is funny. I am doing it because you want to avoid people. You want to avoid people like this. You'll come across people like this in your life, and you want to run for the hills when you find people that are shady. I've worked with people like this, but also I've fished against people like this in a bass club when I was younger. But we won't get into that. We'll save that for another time. So anyway, here's what's going on. This is from Wired to Fish. Wired to Fish, fantastic. They're doing amazing stuff. Not only just print, not print, online articles, but also just their phenomenal work with their video stuff too. So anyway, Minnesota company too, so I'm kind of feel a kinship. Wired to Fish, this is from them. Infamous walleye cheater now charged with deer poaching. So this guy just is a turd, okay? This guy can't help himself. His family, his whole family are probably turds. They brought him up to be a turd. He knows no different. It is completely natural for this guy to be a turd. And so you can put him in jail for a while, but you throw him out of jail and he's going to continue to put an ankle bracelet on this guy because he's a turd and he'll always remain a turd. But here we go. This is the, the article. I believe in forgiveness too, okay? I believe in forgiveness, but this guy is really... I shouldn't say, I'm trying to be better. Okay, he's not a turd. He is redeemable. Everybody's redeemable. But this guy is a piece of work. Let's just put it that way. Wired to Fish, here we go. File this under not knowing to quit while you're already behind. One of two world infamous walleye cheaters, Chase Kaminsky of Hermitage, Pennsylvania, has now been charged with multiple counts related to deer poaching from 2013 to 2021. According to a complaint filed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission Northwest Office, they were contacted by an individual that knew Kaminsky on November 25th, 2022, after his walleye cheating controversy had made worldwide attention. During an investigation of his home, wardens discovered 5 mounted bucks that had been tagged under another person's name and or killed at night or out of season or without the proper license. They know this because Kaminsky's hunting privileges in Pennsylvania were they were revoked in 2008 for prior game law violations. I am shocked. I can't believe it. Okay, so where were we? Kaminsky was charged Monday, October 23rd, 2023 with 2 counts of unlawful killing or taking of big game, 3 counts of unlawful taking or possession of game or wildlife, 2 counts of unlawful acts concerning licenses, and 1 count of violation in tagging and reporting big game kills as specified in the court records filed with Mercer County. Kaminsky, by the way, this I was in a bass club in Pennsylvania where there was some, let's just put it this way, shadiness going on. I certainly hope this isn't a Pennsylvania thing, something in the water. But anyway, okay. Kaminsky still has charges pending from a case in February of 2023 where he and his son, Caden Kaminsky, were charged with conspiracy to commit forgery when they attempted to pass counterfeit $100 bills in a bowling alley in Hermitage. This son of a... The younger Kaminsky pleaded guilty to a charge of theft by deception and was sentenced to 1 year probation. The older Kaminsky's case is still pending in Mercer County Court of Common Pleas. Kaminsky and Jacob Runyon were sentenced back in May to the October 2022 walleye cheating incident in Cleveland. Wow. I'm not surprised. There's people among us, that you just need to steer clear of. You know, you get enough life experience, you can kind of start seeing like red flags very early on, and it's just when that happens, you just want to just start moving away from them. Just moving away from them, and you'll be much better off in life. Trust me with this. I have vast experience. Not vast. I have enough experience to know that when you've run up next to these people, you need to start running away quickly. That's my advice to you. So this quite a character, this guy. All right, so now let's move on. Oh, I want to show you this. So, I believe this happened in Canada or northern Minnesota or North Dakota. I believe it was up in those regions, right? Near Canada, maybe in Canada. But this is from WDAY, ABC News. And I believe this is coming out of North Dakota. This is a gentleman who, very proud of a walleye, was having a buddy take a picture of it. It looks like they're going to go to a bar, but he wanted to get a picture of this walleye that he had caught, and his buddy's taking a picture of it. And oh no, what happens here? Let me show you. We're going to play this little news piece from WDAY ABC News. And just listen to this or watch it.
We have all heard or told a good fishing story, maybe even lied a little bit about, the big one that got away.
But in Valley City tonight, they are still talking about the walleye that flipped and flopped away on Main Street. This is a crazy story. The dramatic rescue and retrieval from WDAY News reporter Kevin Wallevant.
Sean Grimm had just rolled into town after a good walleye catch. Where had you been fishing?
I can't tell you that.
On a nearby lake.
It's like I had this gorgeous 22-inch walleye, which, you know what? That's as big as you keep. Everything else goes back in.
The Valley City native comes home often to fish and always hits his favorite haunts like Pizza Corner Pizza.
4.5 pound walleye. It's a nice fish and it's big.
A good photo op.
So I'm holding this fish, getting ready and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it flip-flops onto the street. Okay, not a big deal. I go down to grab it, boom, 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 right into the, the drain sewer. It's like, you've got to be kidding me.
This sure sounds like a great fishing story, but is there proof? We talked with area businesses, no security footage, but recently the Valley City Police Department installed traffic cameras. And those cameras captured it all. We showed Sean the traffic cam video of the fish flop.
Yeah, that was it. That was the you've got to be kidding moment right there.
Sean, a seasoned angler with his own fishing license plates.
But that's lit, so, I can see through the slots here. You can see the light coming through, and I can see the fish. It's flopping. Wasn't
going to let this walleye go.
What do you do with this? I'm going, maybe it's just like a big manhole cover, Maybe I can lift this, thing up, and, of course I grab it. It's like, that's going nowhere. That's going nowhere. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, it's like,
And so
I go over to my car, and I pull out, go into my tackle box, and I pull out a Rapala, right? 3 treble hooks. This thing catches fish. Is it going to catch fish in a storm sewer? We're going to find out, right?
He did what any angler would do.
I'm sitting here trying to snag, and I snag it. I get the fish. It's like, oh, and then it pops out. It's like, okay, it's possible.
Sure enough, the traffic camera recorded Sean using his rod and reel and treble hook to try and catch that walleye again.
So then I go back in, I'm going at it again, and I hook into it. It's like, okay, this seems pretty solid.
At first, it looked like failure. Trying to hook this walleye a second time.
pull it up slowly, grab the fish by the back of the head, and slowly pull it out of the deal. So then we stand up, we take the picture away from the gutter, right?
Success. The final photo and a fish story for the ages.
Even the goofiest things like fish down a drain, it's like you got that story, and it's like sometimes it's even better than the fish you caught. Sorry.
Kevin Wallivan, WDAY News.
And Sean celebrated the big fish rescue with what else? Pizza Corner Pizza. First of all, Sean is an excellent storyteller. Thank goodness we have that video.
He had pizza while his mom and dad had the walleye.
Right.
That was in the storm drain.
I wonder if he ordered anchovies.
Well, yeah. Had a big one, didn't he?
All right, there's enough of that nonsense. These local newscasters, anchors, I tell you, they do the hard hitting stories. We really, we find out how the world's really working. Always getting those hard hitting stories. But here's the reality. That's a fun little story. I thought I'd pass it along to you. It would have been a more interesting story if the guy the walleye was alive, and they'd been having some rains, and the fish, got into the sewer, and somehow the fish was still healthy enough to actually eat the lure, and he caught. That's absolutely impossible. What I'm talking about. But anyway, it was a funny story, so I thought I'd share that. Happened recently. Makes perfect sense that we would include that in another fishing podcast, fishing news section. So that concludes the fishing news section of another fishing podcast, and we're going to go into what we have coming up for this week and then next week as far as content on Angling Uploaded. Again, if you're watching this, listening to this, if you're watching this, you're actually already on Angling Uploaded on the YouTube channel. But if you're listening to this on any number of podcasting apps, all the major ones, thank you. But check it out. Go to Angling Uploaded on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Angling Uploaded, and that's how you can find content, watch my videos. I also have a partner in crime, been my fishing buddy forever, Pete Wagner. We do a show called Another Fishing Show. We haven't done an episode in a while. We need to get on that, but he also provides content. He is a master angler, multi-species extraordinaire, Pete Wagner. Got to get him on this podcast. And also, I can't wait to see, he does a lot of like Boundary Waters canoe fishing videos that do very, very well. They're long form content too, so they're long videos. You can really get lost in just the beauty of the BWCA. So I recommend his stuff. So go to YouTube, Angling Uploaded, to see our content. But so I am working on, so the Sixth Sense is this lure company that's really, come out relatively recent, making really high-end looking baits. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. And they came out with this Panorama. That's the name of this lure that they came out with, which is essentially, it is a dead ringer of a gizzard shad. It looks exactly like a gizzard shad. It is a near replica of a gizzard shad. So it's a soft plastic. You can rig this bait all kinds of different ways. On this video I did with it, I rigged it as a soft jerk bait. And so I go into how to fish that bait, what kind of equipment you need, the hook for it, how to retrieve it. And during that video, I actually learned a really cool retrieve. I think probably the best retrieve that you can use for it to really make it erratic and really take advantage of how realistic this bait is. So, Can you hear that right now? My wife I'm in my basement right now. Now this is the Vern Olsen studio, okay? This is the Vern Olsen studio that I'm in right now, but I'm also in my basement, and my wife she's blending stuff right now. So this might look super high budget behind me, but trust me, this is still, and even this lens, the way how pretty it looks, you might be thinking, oh my God, man, this guy has a lot of money. No, I'm in my basement, and I just know how to make things look much higher production than they really are. So, yeah, my wife is making a smoothie upstairs. Okay, so, and I'm fine with that. Hey, I am fine with that, sugar, just so you know. Okay, I think she's ignoring me. Okay, so, yeah, that video, so everything with this panorama, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. I talk about that in this upcoming video that's going to be going up on Friday, this Friday. But there's a lot of ways to fish it. We'll talk about that in the video, but a lot of different kinds of ways to fish it, obviously. But I found a unique retrieve to do that I think is really going to be effective for when you want to use it as a soft jerkbait. So that is coming up this Friday, November 3rd. Not sure about what time yet. I'm kind of thinking about putting videos up later. Maybe 6 p.m., 7 p.m. That even goes for this podcast. I think I might do that because it just allows me, if need be, it gives me a little bit more time to edit if I have to. And then I just think it might be a better time. More people are at home and not working. So, but it will be going up Friday, so look for it then. And this is what I want to show you, this bait, just to give you an idea too what we're talking about here. This is the panorama as a set up as a soft jerkbait. So I shot some underwater with it, and this is what it looks like. It's something special. It looks, when you kill it, it looks, you're not seeing it in this underwater footage. I start working it much more erratically, but that tail, you can kind of see it flaps really quick. The more erratic and faster you reel that bait, that tail starts flapping really fast. And I think that's critical for working this bait to really get, to trigger strikes. But what's unique about this bait as compared to a soft jerk bait, most soft jerk baits like a fluke, Zoom Super Fluke, something like that, is this bait is much more realistic. So when you kill it, I think fish are going to hit that, which when they might not hit a fluke, because this thing looks so darn realistic. And this is the color of this is ghost minnow, which is a good color, pretty realistic color, but that gizzard shad color in this bait is unbelievable. It looks exactly like a gizzard shad. So look for that Friday. Also, I'm going to be working on a channel catfish video. I've already shot it, but I need to get it edited. That's going to be going up next week. This is on the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes, colder water, temperature dropped to 55. Found them, in the summertime, they get pretty shallow. They're moving deeper now. They're in that 5, well, they're probably even deeper now, but this was a week and a half ago. They're probably, they're in that like 5 to 10 feet of water. And I found them, and it was such a hoot using just basically, I used a float for a while, shrimp split shot under a float. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I just don't even need the float. I'm going to just take the float off and cast it out and just have the rod in my hand, let that split shot in that shrimp. I was using I believe it was a 2/0 Kale hook, and just letting that thing go to the bottom and just wait. And it's a really cool video. So caught some nice catfish, just to give you kind of a preview what we're talking about here. Here's one of them. Nice, well-bodied channel cat. This fishery is getting so much better. Used to just catch smaller cats. Now they're getting much bigger. That is just, anywhere you go, that's a beautiful channel cat. So one of them that I caught when I went out last week. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to drop that one on November 10th. And again, not sure what time I'm going to be doing that. But yeah, beautiful fall channel catfish episode. I'm excited for you guys to check out. And lastly, kind of wrapping up here, getting ready to wrap up, I want to make it a point to kind of show you on social media some of the accounts that I really, really like. I really dig. The internet is beautiful for finding stuff like little gems, you know? And the beauty of the internet too is that people like, just like myself in my basement, you know, they're starting businesses and they're starting lure businesses. And this is one of them here. He's making, I believe he's a veteran. The name of his company is called Battle Baits. You could find him on Instagram. I follow him on Instagram, but I think he's pretty much everywhere. But he does a lot of great stuff, a lot of great reels. You know, reels on Instagram are just vertical video, a minute or less, but a lot of good information. But his, so basically go on Instagram, search Battle Baits, you'll find him. And his stuff, I'm loving the attention to detail of the lures that he's making here. Let me read about him first. But originally based in Jing Clear waters of Southern Oregon, we set out to reinvent the industry of match-the-hatch patterns. As of 2021, we relocated to Branson, Missouri, and continue to press the envelope in innovation while focusing on serious bass anglers. With a background in fly fishing and a love of bass fishing, we took to the tying vise to create patterns that would change the way we all see our baits. We found the ability to create skirting patterns that truly represent the forage we were trying to match and yet obtain an incredible durability on our baits like no others. We were quickly making our name in the industry, but we did not want to stop there. Listening to our customers throughout the country, we have been able to set our baits apart from others by making improvements on long-standing productive presentations. As fishermen ourselves, we identify the frustration surrounding wasted plastic trailers due to bulky lead keepers. With the assistance of custom mold makers, we have reinvented our heads to have wire trailer keepers to help you fish more effectively on the water and save money. Premium hooks, paint, blades, and eyes and swivels are used in the construction of our baits to exceed the established norms of the industry. We appreciate our customers and listen to their feedback, which has allowed us to create patterns that now dominate throughout the United States. All tackle is individually handcrafted and detail-oriented, which results in the best American-made tackle in the industry. And so this is Battle Baits, man. It's the way it looks, like that about page that I just read makes it seem like it's, you know, more than one dude, but it seems to me just by the Instagram account that it's one guy. Because I've seen him, you know, he does videos of him just like making all this stuff, and he's like just making tons of baits, and you can tell the guy's really, really passionate. I wish I knew his name, but he's making great looking stuff. Look at this. This is a swimming jig here. Great heads on them. Everything is, the attention to detail on the skirts is second to none. Like, his skirts are incredible. So that's a swim jig. And here is a little bitty spinnerbait he's making. Again, I love how that head looks. I love that he's customizing. He's making these little baits, this little spinnerbait. That quarter gives you an idea of how big that is. And look at that skirt. You know, it's matching like a bait fish. The strands are just, everything's very perfect, trimmed well. And then lastly here, you see some of these underspins that he's done. He's got that screw lock keeper on there on the hook, keep that plastic on there. Everything is just really high end, great attention to detail. So I wanted to share that. Battle Baits, check him out. You'll see how he's like making these baits. He does great content on Instagram. So check that out. We are going to wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you are listening to the audio podcast, go over to Angling Uploaded. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the Angling Uploaded YouTube channel. That would do wonders for us. We're also going to go put some stuff on Rumble now. Rumble is a free speech platform. We already have some videos up there right now, but I'm going to continue to put videos up there. There's a lot of BS going on with censorship on YouTube. I'm getting quite frankly tired of it. I believe I am a believer in the the principles that founded this country, right? And I feel like there's a lot of like First Amendment issues happening right now. People being censored on the internet, I think it's a bunch of garbage. And so YouTube's really leading the pack in a lot of ways with a lot of censorship. I think that Rumble is providing a fantastic alternative. So just to support Rumble and what they're doing, I'm putting content on there as well. So go over there, and that would be great. Just if you like what we're doing, support that channel. Angling Uploaded over there at Rumble. So that would be great. And if you like what the videos that we're doing here, please like any of the videos. That does wonders for the algorithm. Please comment and share with me what you think, what we're doing, have any ideas with content. Even, I think I've thought more about this too with just this another fishing podcast, but also Angling Uploaded, our YouTube channel. I just think and this is the beauty of social media, it's a great way to just learn things, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on all things fishing, all things multi-species. There's some things that I'm pretty good at, a lot of things I'm not, so we can learn from each other. So I think it's wonderful for that. So please comment, and you want to see something, or if you have something to share, we can learn from each other. I think it's a great aspect of social media that you can do that you can have those interactions. So yeah, and then you can follow us on, I am not focusing at all on Facebook, not a fan of Zuckerberg. I use Facebook more as just keeping in contact with close friends and family. So I'm really trying to just mainly focus on YouTube, Instagram, and then also put our stuff on Rumble. So I think that's it. So go to Instagram if you haven't, check out our stuff there. Become a follower. Angling Uploaded on Instagram. We're doing a lot of cool stuff there as well, and appreciate all the support. I need to come up with some kind of a catchphrase. Maybe help me out with that. I'm thinking too, this is because I just went on that free speech rant. I am a big proponent. I'm becoming more, I'm like right in the center politically, okay? But free speech is so, so important. And I'm thinking, and just freedom in general, right? I mean, really, in the last 3.5 years, haven't we really felt that freedom, baby, is really, really important? It's really, really important. So I'm thinking, tell me if you like this, that fans of Angling Uploaded, we are going to call you freeloaders. I'm a freeloader. If you're a fan of what we're doing here, you're a freeloader. Does that work? I like it, right? Let's go with it. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. Until next time.